Let's get chilly. All right. Hello and welcome back to Let's Chill, the official, unofficial Minnesota Wind Chill, Minnesota Strike podcast. I'm Jeph. Caine, I don't know if we got audio on you. There you go.
Okay, I'm Caine.
All right. And tonight we're without Jay, but we are still recapping the Wind Chills epic Super Series game against the Madison Radicals in Madison. Great comeback, bounce back win, I should say, after their home opener against the Thunderbirds. I'm going to share my screen real quick, and we're going to do some stall count trivia, uh, which is here. Okay. Who is in after this weekend? Who is in second place in the Central Division? Is it A, Chicago Union, B, Madison Radicals, C, Indianapolis Alley Cats, or D, Pittsburgh Thunderbirds?
Oh, for some reason, I want to say that that put Pittsburgh into second place for some reason.
It is not. It is A, and only technically. The Chicago Union have the same record as Minnesota. They're 3-1, but their loss is at the hands of Minnesota, so we have the better head-to-head record. So it's Minnesota, then Chicago, and then Madison, and like the Alley Cats are like 1-1 because they've played 2 games. But yeah, interesting Central Division standings right now. All right, and my favorite question for this weekend is 5 players on the wind chill currently have 1,000+ total yards so far this season. Which player doesn't? And this is throwing and receiving yards combined. A, Quinn Snyder, B, Matt Rader, C, Leo Salvo Fernandez, or D, Tristan Vandermortel.
We'll go with A.
It is A, Quinn Snyder. He only has about 500 yards, and obviously most of them are receiving yards. Uh, I thought that was an interesting stat. Like it's kind of one of those random ones that like no one's ever really going to look at and pay close attention to. But I feel like Snyder's always, downfield receiving and bringing in buckets. So he only has like 500 yards so far.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially as someone who fills mainly a cutter role, you don't expect them to get a whole lot of yards, but then like they'll have that game where they rack up a few hundred at a time kind of thing. So,
Yeah. Well, the
but you
thing is,
get players like Tristan Vandermortel, he's touching every other disc. So.
right. Yeah, that's true. Handlers definitely get more yards. I think Quinn Snyder too is like a deep cutter generally. Like he's not really that midfield cutter. So like you would think he has more. But yeah, I don't know. Besides the point, just an offside tangent. But let's talk about the game on Friday. Like I said, the wind chill traveled to Madison. There was an hour and a half rain delay, which like was a significant dent. I was very glad. I was very close to going to the Madison to watch the game. I was trying to get you and Jay to come along, and it didn't work out. But I'm glad that we didn't have to sit an hour and a half in the rain after driving for 4 hours. So, but they won. They won what 21-17, I believe. I had the score up. Yep, 21-17. Um, and it just looked like the wind chill were back in all regards of the game, especially compared to their game the week before at home against the Thunderbirds. Like that was a classic wind chill win, I think.
Mhm. Yeah, at first when you said it was a comeback, I was kind of like, I don't know, I don't think it was. And yeah, when you corrected yourself, but yeah, it felt like, especially at Madison. I mean, everyone talks about the environment of those games. We talk about it, but it was exactly what you would have expected. And yeah, we can obviously get more into the specifics, but overall, really good game for sure.
Yeah. I think the big storyline, maybe not storyline, but like a big focus point we could touch on here is that hour and a half rain delay. Like you can always definitely speculate on like how did this affect the game and did it swing? But like there is actually a very clear pivot in that game with the rain delay. Matt Rader showed up late to the game. I don't know, whatever conflicts or whatever, but he was not going to make it for most of that game. But he showed up, I believe, pretty much as the rain delay had started, um, which gave him time to warm up, get his legs underneath him, kind of get a lay of the land of the game. Because it was like basically like toward the end of the second quarter is when games stopped for about an hour and a half. So like Raider probably wouldn't have played until the third quarter anyway, given when what time he showed up. But it was huge that he was able to even just like close out the second quarter with the team and get the second half of the game, going forward. And he actually ended up being a pretty pivotal member of the win.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to, again, we always, point to the one play and it's like, oh, if this was different, obviously you can't do
Mhm.
that. But it when you can point to this and go, if we didn't have Raider, you can definitely see where we would have had a missing impact. Obviously, that's not to say that I think we would have lost without him. I don't think that that's a like fair thing to say either way, but definitely made a really big impact. He was really fun to watch, and I feel like his impact on the field, even just like as outside of being an individual player and just like making the playmaking,
Mhm.
I don't know how to.
It's hard to quantify like his
Right.
role on the team.
Right.
Uh,
Especially because it is a newer position that he's like kind of filling.
right. I mean, to try to quantify it, like I always look at stats just to kind of guide our discussions. So far this season, he has 2 assists, he has 9 goals, and he has 6 blocks. He has a total yards of I can't do this quick math, but like just over five. Oh, I can 5,400, 5,045. Wow. Or 1,000. Oh my gosh, you guys, this is bad. He has 1,000, let's say 1,000 throwing or total yards,
He has
and he's
many
played
yards.
his mini yards. He's in the top five of the team, and he's mostly played offense. He has 8 defensive points played. Which is all to say, all those stats kind of point to him being such that well-rounded player. Like he has so many throwing yards, like even splits, 500, 500 throwing receiving yards. He has like basically as many blocks as he has goals. He makes an impact wherever he is on the field. So again, it's not like, okay, Matt Rader's in, we're throwing deep to him. Like he's a leader on the field. He's a tool that like a multi-use tool that they can be like, we're gonna put him in, we're gonna kind of see how this plays out and use him as this role and this point and this role and that point. And um yeah, which like you said, Ken, it's really hard to like put into words, but it's super helpful for the team. And like he's as advertised. I think they're super excited to have him this season on the team, and they're getting exactly what they wanted out of the signing.
Definitely, yeah. We see why we were so excited and hyped up about him. Um, and yeah, thank you for articulating that. Like how I'm like, it's hard to put it to words, and you're just like, here's all these numbers for why he's the greatest. Like that. Yeah, you
We
can
don't
do
have to
that.
put it to words when we have numbers.
No, for real. That was it. No, that's awesome though, and I kind of one thing I was piecing together while you were saying that. It feels like while the wind chill kind of has its offensive system running or defensive system running, it feels like Raider is able to slide in and like oil the machine a little bit.
Yeah.
And so it's nice to
There
have
was
like all those flex players.
For sure. There was a play this game where he literally slid in to save a point. I didn't know. I don't have this clip point pulled up, but if anyone who watched the game knows or any sort of replays, there's a point where I'm forgetting who threw it, but somebody had thrown it to I believe Greg Cousins in the end zone, and it was just overthrown. And it was just going to be a drop point, and Raider came in out of nowhere. He had the awareness to hustle, slide into the end zone, and save it for a goal, which is like a great play. And yeah, I think perfectly exemplifies like if someone else is gonna maybe miscue, or if there's gonna be an error here, like he's there to kind of help fill in, pick up that error and stuff. Not that he's like this, amazing hero who can do everything, but like he can fill that in and pick up the team where they need to be picked up. So that's been really cool to see him develop this season.
Absolutely. Matt Raider, if you were listening, we'd love to have you on the podcast sometime.
Like yeah. Um, I think the Windshield 2 just as a whole, as a team, this game looked so much cleaner. Like I said at the beginning, like they just looked like a classic Windshield team, like who we've known for the last few seasons. Like the game against the Thunderbirds, we've talked about. We don't have to belabor too much for, but like just it was an ugly game. It wasn't the Windchill that we know the Windchill to be. This game was cleaner and better in just about every stat category. Like their huck percentage was significantly higher. They had like half the amount of turnovers, if not even more. Like they had like 11 turnovers in the game. Their breaks and completions were each higher. Like again, they took this loss from the Thunderbirds and were like, we can't do this again. Like no game is a given. We got to clean it up, and they did.
Yeah, I mean, clearly last year we saw a Minnesota team not too different than this one that was able to put together a season with what, one loss, like one regular season loss or
Too.
two or three, either way. And so I don't think I feel like a lot of people may have discounted Minnesota due to the loss against Pittsburgh. But like you said, I feel like the team really did. It was like that little wake up call for the season, and now I think we're safe to see the rest of the season is like let's keep it going.
Right. And again, like we can sit here and list names, but like I just a few call outs quickly is like there are some big names back. Dylan DeClerc shined in the game. Uh, Josh Klain was back. I didn't realize he was going to be back in town for the game, so that was cool to see him. And he also again was in vintage form, like throwing hucks to Bevon. Like what
Mhm.
better windshield duo than like a Klain to
Right?
Bevon?
Like one of those
Um,
like highlight flicks where he gets it
yeah,
between two defenders. I was like, that was
that's
great.
crazy. Yeah. So it was just like it was good to see like some of these older players again step back or come back and step in, and it was a full team effort. Is maybe what I'm trying to say. So, and this is not to say either. Like the Madison Radicals in the last maybe 2 seasons, like haven't looked the best. They've been kind of a weaker team, and like this Madison Radicals team this season is deadly. I think they've kind of got the stuff. They are putting it together and they're figuring it out. And like they were good on Friday. It was not an easy win for the wind chill. Um, I think it's going to be kind of that way for the next few seasons. I think the Madison Radicals have a lot to look forward to the next few seasons, and we kind of saw a glimpse of that on Friday.
Absolutely. I think I mean obviously Madison has always been a fun rival. And
Mm,
so it's cool to see that both of these teams are, you know, I want to say they're evenly matched because I want Minnesota to be better.
yeah.
But it's good to have a healthy divisional rival. And
Oh yeah.
I mean, I know it's on the bullet list point a little bit lower, but I'll just call out Anthony Gutowski
Yeah.
on the Madison Radicals. He's one of those players where he'll be a name in the league for a while. You'll hear his name, up there for a while.
He's gonna be like that's. I'm glad you brought that up because that's kind of the next point on the list. Anyways, like Anthony Gutowski is gonna be a thorn in the Windchills and Central Division side for a long, long time. Which again, as an Ultimate fan, that's super exciting. I love watching him. As a Windchill fan, like get him off the field. Like he's good. And then like especially on Friday, but just in general, paired with Kai Marcus. Kai Marcus had a game of a lifetime. I feel like he had something like 5 or 6 assists and like one of the keys to the game for the Radicals they were talking about before the game was let Kai Marcus air it out basically and let him get the disc, let him just like captain the field. And the Radicals did just that. The Radicals used Kai Marcus's ability to handle and to look deep, find Gutowski and other receivers deep, um, which is why it was such a close game. I think if you took him and or Gutowski out of that game on Friday, it would look much different. I think it would be a 6 or 7 point win rather than like the 4 point win that it was. And again, even that was close till the end. Like I feel like third quarter was when it started to pivot toward the Windchill's way. But um, yeah, the Radicals are good, is what I'm saying. Like they're a good team.
Right. Yeah, definitely not a blowout. And but had the rain delay not hit, I don't know. Maybe the outcome would have been different. Like we said at the top,
Right.
maybe. But
Right.
obviously Minnesota walked away with a win. And that's not to discount, Minnesota, obviously. I think we put together a really strong showing of a game, and we can expect to look forward to doing that again week after week.
Absolutely. Again, I think this is a good transition. So to our clip, but like the wind chill definitely right didn't just benefit from the rain delay. Like they cleaned up their game in all aspects. Just about every way they could. They looked so much better. And in this clip that I'm going to share here, we'll see that. I'm just playing it back in 75.75 speed. This is just it's the end of the second quarter. And this clip is basically just to show like how patient the handlers are. I think again when we saw the Thunderbirds game, they just looked not chilly like we talked about. They were hucking it quickly. They were quick to like, oh, I almost fumbled this pass, so now I have to stand up and quickly throw it again before I fumble it, right? Like I think they kind of felt jittery. As I played here, you'll notice how they absolutely do not feel jittery. Um, there's a foul in this play. I started it just a little too early, but we're gonna see. Just watch how every member of the team is calm, cool, and collected. Even again, Bivon like stumbles to slides to make that save on the throw,
Mhm.
chills out and like finds his receiver, a deep pass toward the end zone. Again, like they're so close to putting it in, they could just like find the next open guy and finish this point. But especially at the end of the quarter, we talk about their second end of quarter situations all the time. They do a great job letting that clock run out. Cam Lacey does a good job resetting it. And even this is not quite a point yet. It's not quite a goal until now. Um, I don't know. I think that just like perfectly exemplifies who the Winchell are. Again, like using everyone on the field, being patient, being chilly, swinging when they need to, looking deep when they can. Um, I think it was a great point.
Yeah, I think one thing that the wind chill does really well is rather than letting the team, and we've kind of talked about this before, but rather than letting the team get the chance to set up their defense on the wind chill handlers, it almost feels like they're looking to hit a continuation right away so that the other team doesn't quite have a chance to set up their defense. Because, like you said, if we can get it to the end zone there and then work it around a little bit, a
Right.
lot of the times we have a good chance to score.
Right.
And so I think really just kind of getting the play started quickly and getting some momentum on the play
Mhm.
can be really impactful rather than, starting a 3-minute trek down the field.
Yeah. And I think it definitely helps too. That I think this was a maybe a I don't know what the call was before this, but there's a foul call. So it kind of helped reset the field a little bit. They could kind of take stock of where they are in the field, how much time's on the clock. And again, they didn't get cute with any like, overhand throws, any upside down throws, anything like that, where it's like, oh, again, we're in the red zone. Let's just try to push it in and get on defense again. Like they were like, no, let's take this opportunity. This is end of quarter. Let's run the clock a little bit too. Like they didn't have to score. Obviously, they wanted to. It's a break chance and a quarter, but I'm just gonna play back in full speed one more time. Again, like that. That's actually I'm gonna stop it real quick. That's the second throw in this play, in this point, I should say, that Bevon actually saves a disc almost exactly the same. He does it about 30 seconds earlier in this point. So again, like that just kind of shows like there were some messy throws, but they handled it way differently too. So like I'm not saying the Winchell were perfectly clean and making every good decision, every good throw, but like the way they bounced back was key. So I'll just watch it again. Like Bevon DeClerc, like it's all the Winchell names that we've come to know and love. Brandon Mattis, like actually I don't know if Brandon Mattis is on this point, but you just can't mind.
His
And
man.
then like Cam Lacey, like we got Cam Lacey and Tanner Barkas. Nice swing. It was a clean look. It's a good look for the goal. A patient play and a quarter break. Like, what more could you want?
Right.
I think that's all I've got about that play and largely about the game. Kane, what else do you have to say about the game, the win, everything?
I think of Minnesota. I I know this is so maybe bad sport analytics of me, but I don't have the stats up for the game. I just feel like we had a better offensive showing. Um, like you noted, Josh Klein was back, but I feel like just having the full roster with the people with what was it, Berglund and DeClerc. I feel like there were a couple other absences that were filled in. I think Colin Berry was back this week.
Oh,
I think just having the filled out roster put a little bit of less pressure on all the individual players and allowed for the team as a whole to succeed a little bit more. And so great offensive job, really good defense as always. I mean, Minnesota's defense is one of those things that they've always been doing, but yeah, just a solid game. So.
yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. And yeah, we'll keep an eye on the Berglund situation. Did not play. He was dressed for the game, or rather, he was not dressed for the game.
Yeah.
No, you're good, but I just want to point that out because it reminded me like he is still officially injured. The roster hasn't come out yet well, it's a bye week, so um, we'll keep you guys updated on Sam Berglund. Speaking of which, league news now. It was a Central Division weekend. I don't know if you noticed, but so we had a big Super Series matchup. We were on like the prime time, if you will, the free game of the week on YouTube. The Chicago Union had two Texas games. They had a doubleheader weekend. We're gonna get to that. And the Pittsburgh Thunderbirds also had a doubleheader weekend. So it was a very heavy Central Division weekend, which kind of resulted in some good shakeups. Um, let's start with the Union. The Union traveled to Texas to play the Havoc and this Austin Soul. Uh, and they surprisingly won both games. I say surprisingly not because I'm a hater, but I think I think the Soul are, I mean, yeah, sure, I'm a hater, it's the Union, but like, I think the Soul are still a good team. Like, they made championship weekend last year, for a reason. Like, we can give them some credit there. And that was the second game of the weekend for the Union. Like they're tired, they're scrappy, coming off a win against the Havoc, and they still were able to beat out the Soul for. I don't know. I think best case scenario is for everybody was that they split the weekend, but the fact that they won both games puts them in second place in the division, but with the same record as the Wind Chill. Like again, we're only in first place because we have that win over the Union right now. So
Yeah, that weekend I was really hoping they'd get a nice little southern butt kicking and then come back up here, but that didn't happen.
I
Good
okay.
games, obviously. Can't like be too upset about it, especially because it's the out of division games. Um, I think it does make me a little more nervous for just like the division standings, but honestly, I think it's gonna you have to play the first few rounds of the playoffs anyway, and so
Hmm.
yeah, we'll see.
I didn't watch any of or I watched a little bit of the game with the Soul and the Havoc. Actually, I watched like 5 minutes of each game. So I can't really speak analytically about either of these games, but I definitely know that the Soul game could have gone either way. Like the Soul were playing, like putting up a pretty good game against the Union, but I think that shows how the Union are a pretty good team this year. If they can put together a full roster, again, that's the perennial question for many teams, but I think specifically the Union. And they happened to put all the pieces together this weekend in Chicago or in Texas. So yeah, definitely like a team to watch. Definitely not something to be iffy about. Like I know we never were. The Union's still a Union, but um, yeah, that was two serious wins for them. Um, and then Pittsburgh Thunderbirds. Speaking of the tough loss in Minnesota, um, they split their weekend road trip. Did they play Detroit, I believe?
Mhm.
And then they went to Toronto to play the Rush. And they lost against the Rush, so that definitely helps. Again, not I don't think the Thunderbirds are still a threat. Like they beat Minnesota, but I don't think that's super serious to take.
Yeah, that one I'm not as worried about, especially because of the split weekend. But
Yeah,
yeah, I have
definitely.
confidence we'll squash them next time.
Yeah, it definitely helps that they lost in Toronto. If they won in Toronto, like yeah, then we'd have to maybe take them seriously, but not yet. I think they're far enough away now. They're 2-3, I think, like how they already played 5 games. But um, and like again, the Alley Cats have played 2 games, which is
Yeah, I'm like, wait, hang
a
on.
crazy
What week of the
difference.
AUDL is it at
I
UFA?
know. Yeah, yeah, it is crazy, and a lot of like double header weekends too. So,
Hmm.
um, and then two other league news points. Each division has one winless team. Um, I thought that was interesting. It's kind of again, we're what week 4 or 5 now. And four teams are without a win. Can you name them all? Is my question. At home, can
Um,
you name them?
oh gosh, Portland,
Yep.
Detroit,
Yep.
Houston. Wait, who's it in the East? Is it Philly?
Is Philly. And it's
No
actually not,
way.
it is Philly and it's not Houston. Yeah, the Philadelphia
Dallas?
Phoenix have it's yeah, Dallas. I feel like Phoenix have put so many teams,
Interesting.
close, but
That's
they
crazy to me because like
yeah,
their
yeah.
team, like the East
They're a
Division
good
shit.
team.
That's crazy. I don't even want to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, we could go a whole episode into East Division. But
seriously.
and then out in the West, the Shred, on the other hand, are still undefeated. They played against San Diego this weekend, and San Diego had a couple points up on them like halfway through the game. I was like, no way, like there's no way San Diego's gonna beat them. And they didn't. Shred took it. Um, but
I've
again, just another
always,
storyline to watch.
yeah, I've always been a San Diego fan. Um, like when we first got into Ultimate, one of
Mhm.
the like first players I knew of was Goose Hilton,
Yeah,
and so I was always like, so it's cool to see that they almost had that. That was a good game. Yeah, I'm excited for the Shred Minnesota game,
a
the
Shred Minnesota game.
the championship.
I got you. I got you. I said because they're playing the Summit.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. It's just like I think it's a fun league this year. I think it's not necessarily what we'd expect. Like there are definitely some storylines that we'd expect, but like this is an interesting season. I think there's a lot of different teams that are kind of mixing up the leagues and the standings and like yeah, we just don't know how it's going to shake out, and I love that. I love that.
Mhm.
Okay, switching gears to the weekly forecast. We have two games to cover next weekend, but it's only through the PUL. Well, Winch will have a bye week, much needed rest before they play the Alley Cats the following week. So that's gonna be a significant game that they have to win, pretty much. Not even pretty much, they have to beat the Alley Cats. Um, but the Strike are also facing two must-win games. Basically, if they lose it once, you know, they already might be out of playoff contention, but it's still a possibility. If they lose one more time, I think they are statistically out of playoff contention. They are starting. Oh, actually, just like a side note with the PUL, there's only one PUL game this weekend. It was the Soul at Monarchs, Milwaukee Monarchs, and the Monarchs won. So I think that was their first win of the season.
Mhm.
Again, just a fun mix up, fun storyline to watch. But the Minnesota Strike are traveling to New York and Philadelphia. I think the opposite. They're starting in Philadelphia and going to New York, um, if I'm not mistaken. Um, for that's gonna be a tough doubleheader schedule this weekend.
Yeah, I've never been. I think on this podcast we talked about double headers. Obviously, the back-to-back days does affect it physically. I always worry about like the mental aspect, especially for a team with the pressure like that. It's a double header weekend road trip, and you have basically the if you lose, the season might be over on the line. So
Yeah,
there's definitely a little bit of added pressure, but I feel like nothing that the team hasn't been able to deal with before, and the individuals on the team can't handle. So it'll
yeah,
be nerve biting and definitely really really fun ultimate to watch.
yeah. I think that's a good point. I think too, it's interesting that we always talk about doubleheader weekends because I think a lot of ultimate players outside of their professional leagues pretty much only play doubleheader weekends or pretty like only like they play tournaments and tournaments are could be 4 or 5 games in a day. And so they are familiar with that strenuous activity, that exercise, that stress, that mental and physical demand. But I think, yeah, in a league where maybe the games are slightly more meaningful and the opponents are potentially tougher. Again, painted with broad strokes here, but yeah, like it's a doubleheader weekend, which is not new to many of these players, but it's almost more pressure, like you said. But I think the Strike can do it. I think their defense is going to really have to step it up. I think the opposite almost of the wind chill, where I think the Strike's defense is something that could be cleaned up a little bit, where on breaks, they need to stay chilly on breaks. I think if they are able to force turns, which they're great at, um, and they can punch that in, even if it's calling a timeout and capitalizing on those break points, I think the Strike have a solid chance. that's just something I've noticed in the last couple games of like, I think they get a little too jumpy on turns, and can't quite get their feet underneath them on an offensive or defensive point.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a solid chance that we walk away with like I could see any outcome of this weekend as like a real possibility. 0-2, 2-0, or split it to either team, either way. Um, and I think it really will come down to, like you said, the defensive show. You have to be able to convert on turnovers. I mean, that's the way to win 9 times out of 10 is to get more break points than the other team does.
Well, and again, like look at their game in Raleigh, last weekend. Like they were holds basically the entire first half. Like who won was the team with more breaks. Like, and again, like we can always talk about how it's not necessarily true and there's always ways to win, but like you said,
Right.
at the end of the day, like chances are good you need at least a break point to win.
Yes.
Holding is crucial and breaking is essential, like
Right. You gotta do
th-
both, obviously.
yeah, yep,
But
absolutely. I think they can do it. But again, even if they go 2-0, like the Philadelphia and New York have to at least lose one more game each, I think statistically. Um, because they would be because the strike would then be 6 or 4-2. It's the top two teams in each division. And I think Philly and New York are both undefeated. So they would each only have one loss. So they need to be 4-2. And then it would go to like point differential and, games against each other and stuff. So yeah, it's a tough end to this season. We'll see what happens. It's gonna be a fun end photo finish, I think.
oh yeah.
But yeah, and unfortunately they're away, but we're gonna be watching on our screens here. Um, then they're gonna be home to wrap up the season, I think on June 8th, if I'm not mistaken, or thereabouts. I don't have the schedule up right now, but it's gonna be a fun couple weeks for Ultimate. Both Minnesota teams are doing they're so much fun to watch. And we hope you join us on the podcast, join us for mailbag, hit us up on social media, and find us at the games. We'd love to talk to you guys at the games as we're on the fence cheering for the wind chill and for the strike. Kane, what else you got?
Yeah. Thank you guys for following along. We are very excited. It's that part of the season where I'm just like counting down the days in between the games where I just want to watch. Like I'm just really excited to
Yeah.
get it going. So definitely glad everyone is tagging along. Um, Make sure to subscribe to the newsletter and check out our mailbag. You guys, ask us questions.
Like, yeah. We will see you back at Seafoam Stadium. Again, I think June 8th, but I'm so sorry I did not have that planned for the final strike game of the season. And of course, when the Colorado Summit come to town, I believe the week after June 15th for that major rematch. So we'll see you there. And in the meantime, this episode, I'm so sorry. This episode is presented by the R1P1 Network, doing great work with the sports media world with their Zoom backgrounds, thumbnails, all of that shebang. Um, we love them. You'll love them too. Go check them out on Instagram. And we will see you later. Stay chilly and ka-chow.
Ciao. Stay chilly.